Hello, it is 5 p.m. Saturday, October 22nd, Pacific Standard Time. Welcome to Church Talk Unlimited with James Paul Beery. On this channel, we talk about the church and how the church affects us or not, and what we should be doing about it. It's not that we have all of the answers, but we are looking for answers. We're looking for the truth. So if you think I have it, you are wrong. I'm searching for it. And the few people that are supporting me on this channel, they are also searching for the truth. Truth about what? Truth about the church. Truth about God, the Creator. What are we supposed to be doing on this earth, particularly in the church? Thanks to those subscribers in Alabama, in Georgia, in Florida, in Tennessee, in Texas, in Oregon, and in California. And thanks to any other locations that are being represented here this evening. Thanks to Marquise James Howard Allen for technical support. Thank NDTR Records for financial support. Thank Annette Berry for financial support. And thank Donnie Walker for financial support. And I see there's a couple of you here in the chat, and I'm sorry. I hope you're able to sign out and sign back in because I couldn't get it to show me any of the features that I'm supposed to have. So I had to start completely over, and I'm probably going to have to take down this preview that was put up last week. I don't know what's going on, but if you're able, please try to log off and log back in. I know that if you are listening, that you could be doing at least a trillion other things instead of listening to me, instead of talking to me. But I believe with all of my heart that it will be worth your while to at least listen to what I have to say. I have been taught for more than 45 years that the church is an organism, and I believe that. But what I don't understand is why do we act as if we are simply another organization? And the answer for that, of course, from me is because there is no real love involved. Well, how would we determine, or how do you and I determine what is real love? I determine real love by what can be confirmed, not just what is said or felt, but what can be confirmed. And since the Bible is the book of the church and the book of millions, hundreds of millions, then I will use that book's definition of what love is. And in terms of confirming the love that we say we have or we say we feel for each other, the Apostle Paul told the Corinthian church, prove the sincerity of your love. So that means to me that love can be proven, that you don't have to go through a whole life of relationships wondering if you are loved or not, or if you are loving or not. Today's topic for discussion is love necessary in the church? Is love necessary in the church? Of course, love is necessary. Love is necessary to get the best out of all of our relationships on the earth. The church belongs to God according to the Bible, and also according to the Bible, God is love. If love is commanded by God, the giver and the sustainer of the universe, the giver and sustainer of the church. And God is commanding us to love each other through the church. And even though we all need love, but the church in particular, since we are supposedly the example of the world, why is love seen so scarcely among us? We're using as a text for the lesson this evening 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 1 through 13. And again, I apologize to you who had already logged in and you had started leaving comments in the chat, but I was unable to get in, so I had to create another video in order to get online. Excuse me. This is one of our listeners. Hey, Brother Walker. I'm sorry. I couldn't get in. You didn't see my comments in the chat? I was going to, but I decided to log off and log back in. I've been telling you guys who are already in, see if you can log off and log back in under the same title, Is Love Necessary in the Church? I'm online right now, and I'm looking at the chat, and I don't see anybody there, but hopefully you're able to go out and come back in. And I'm sorry, I've never seen this problem that I had today. I couldn't see anything. It never would connect at all. This is the worst I've seen it so far. I got you now. Okay. You see me with the phone in my hand? Right. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm going to get back to it. Yes, I do. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. That was one of Church Talk Unlimited subscribers. And as I said, we have been having some technical problems today, and we haven't had any for quite a while, but things happen, right? So here we are to possibly finish this lesson on, is love necessary in the church? And of course, love is necessary. And we're going to use to prove our love is necessary through the use of the Bible. And we're going to use to confirm that love is real by proving the sincerity of our love. And we're going to prove the sincerity of our love by, again, pulling from the Bible the things that God, Christ, the apostles, the scriptures say that we should be doing towards each other if we really love each other. In the first verse of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 1, the Apostle Paul says to the church, or at least he is attributed to having written this letter to the church. He says, if I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, and these are languages. There are many who preach today about you must speak in tongue, but the tongue that I hear people speaking in or pretending to speak in is gibberish. I never understand what they're saying. So what is the point? But Paul is saying, if I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. James Brown, the great legendary entertainer, had a song called Talking Loud and Saying Nothing. In other words, no matter how many languages we can speak, regardless of how many degrees we hold, regardless of how fanciful we are able to teach and preach, if we do it without love, then we are only making noise. Paul went on to say, if I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. Now, this is nothing in comparison to what we ought to be. Of course, we can do anything a person who doesn't have love can do, but God's word, is the Bible, what we call God's word, tells us that when we do it without love, regardless of how great we are among each other, Paul says, I'm nothing if I don't have love. If I give all I possess to the poor and I give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. In other words, my actions do not please the Creator. And since everything belongs to the Creator, and the Creator is love, when I do what I do without love, I gain nothing. And sometimes we think because we have gotten by that we have gotten away. But according to this passage, when we work without love in our plans, we don't gain anything. Our bank accounts may grow, but in the sight of the Creator, we have not gained, but we have lost. Love is patient, verse 4. Love is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not boast. Love is not proud. Love does not dishonor others. And you know, if you've been listening to me since 2020, December 2020, I've been talking about the homeless, those that are extremely poor, those who are marginalized because they are poor. And many times, my experiences in the church seems to prove that we don't have any honor for the poor. We don't have any honor for the homeless, and we don't use love in our interactions with them. Love is not self-seeking. Love is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. If we love God and we love each other, we don't rejoice because we fall on hard times, and it can happen to anyone. I've told people often on this channel that I have been homeless at least 3 times. And it wasn't because I didn't have intelligence. It wasn't because I didn't want to do better. It was because I didn't know the person I needed to know in order to get what I needed to have. I was a stranger in a strange land, and I was not prepared to deal with this great city of Los Angeles. So I ended up sleeping in my car sometime. Somebody would say, well, at least you have a car. Yes, and I'm thankful that I did. But you know, we all need more than a car. Paul goes on to say, love always protects. And I'm getting back to the homeless and the poor now. If we love our brothers and sisters, particularly, I know we're supposed to let our light shine before everybody, but especially, Paul says, do good unto all, but especially those in the church, those of the household of faith. And Paul says, love protects those who are not doing well, whether it's their health, whether it's their need for food, clothing, water, housing, medication, or visitation. Those of us who love each other, we should be looking out for each other to protect each other from falling through the cracks of life. Paul says love always trusts. When we are doing the right thing, leaders in these churches and organizations, it doesn't matter if you go bust, if you're giving your money up because of love, if you're giving up money to the people you love because they need it. And I'm not talking about going against everybody else, but I'm talking about using biblical scripture as a guideline to how we use the funds. We haven't lost anything. Paul says it's when we do these things without love that's when we do not gain anything. Love always hopes. Those who are poor in the churches and poor in the organizations that are supposed to be community-based, and recently there's been a lot of talk about Black Lives Matter, and those who made all of those millions of dollars, they gathered all of those millions of dollars and then went away somewhere. Don't even hear from them anymore. That's not what love does. Love helps those who need to be helped. Love protects those who need to be protected. Love supports those who need to be supported, and not just the preacher. Love never fails, Paul says. Even though it may seem like we are not being successful because we're not in the newspaper, we're not on the television, we're not on the radio, we're not in books. But Paul says love never fails. How can love fail if love is God? And I have a lot of questions about the church and about the Bible and about the way we do things, because how can a child of God who has been blessed with sunshine and rain just like everybody else, but because they don't have money, they cannot survive? Is love necessary in the church? Of course it is. Paul says love never fails, but whether there be prophecies, they will cease, they will fail. Whether there are tongues or languages, they will be quieted, they will fail. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. Paul says, because we know in part and we prophesy in part. We don't know a whole lot of things, but there's one thing that I'm sure about on this channel, that I know that every human being needs water, food, clothing, housing. When we're sick, we need medication. And if we should happen to go to jail or go to prison or become bedridden, we all need visitation. We all need encouragement to do the right thing in this present world. Paul says, we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When we love each other biblically as much as possible, all of that nonsense that others may try to heap up on us, may try to entangle us in, it disappears, because love will take care of that. Paul says, when I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. And some of the reason that we don't love is because we're still children. Some of the reasons that we're not able to help each other and support each other based off of love is because we are still children. We haven't grown up. We've been members of the church 40, 50, 60, 70 years, and we're still little children. We cannot think for ourselves, and we know that all of our thoughts should be motivated by love, but we got to go ask somebody, what do you think? When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, or when I became an adult, I put the ways of childhood behind me. Now that I have love in my life, I don't love a person based on the color of their skin or how much money they have or what their education is or what size their body is and so on and so on. I love them and I support them accordingly as need. Paul says, for now, we see only a reflection as in a mirror, but one day we shall see the Creator face to face. Paul says, now I know in part, but one day I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And I know there's a lot of talk and a lot of discrepancies in the talks that we do and that we hear about God and Allah and Yehovah and Yah and Yahusha and Jesus and so on and so forth. But one of these days we're going to know for sure. But right now we're sort of shooting in the dark. But one thing is certain, we all have some common needs. And if we can't do anything else, everybody's not going to win a Grammy, an Oscar. Everybody's not going to win a Pulitzer Prize. Everybody's not going to have a best-selling book. But everybody on this planet should be able to get the bare necessities of life. Paul says in verse 13, and now these three things remain: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these, he says, is love. Christ taught one man who was asking him what the greatest commandment was, and he said, first, love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. And the second, he says, is like this: love your neighbor as you love yourself. If I love you the way I love myself, I don't want myself to be hungry. I don't want myself to be homeless. I don't want myself to be without any of the necessities of life for me and for mine. And I should want the same for you. Paul says there are three things that remain, and those who are running around talking about healing people and talking to God and face to face, or God talking to them face to face and speaking in tongues, Paul said those things were not intended to last forever, but he says there are three things that do remain: faith, hope, and love. But James says faith without works is dead. Paul says that which is seen is not hope. And John says God is love. And how can you, James says, love God whom you have not seen, but you hate your brother whom you have seen? And hate is not based off of dislike or racism or discrimination, but it's that we're not giving enough of ourselves to each other is the same as hating each other. Please stick around and leave some comments in the live chat after the video presentation, or you may email me with statements, with questions that you have about the things that I say. You may want to talk to me further. Feel free to email me at theoriginalchurchtalk@gmail.com. We're still having some type of issues with our chat here, so it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get anything done with the chat today. So God willing, we'll try again next week, which will be October 29th at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I appreciate you all being here, and I'm sorry if you are sitting there listening and watching and you have something to say, but you can't get in. I apologize. So until next time, I wish you love, peace, truth, freedom, and justice.